Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, and you're listening to the Harris Highlights Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from the Bill Austin Radio Studio at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism in beautiful downtown Phoenix. This is episode 10 of season 3 of the Harris Highlights Show. Joining me this week is our college football expert, Josh Schaefer, our college football analyst, Lyle Goldstein, with our amazing executive producer, Brady Klain. Everyone over here has a fantastic intro they're doing for the camera right now, and I have nothing planned, so
kind of like this past weekend, you all by yourself. I
guess this was like a group chat going on that everyone was just going to plan out our own little intros, and I was left out, leaving me out to dry. So I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Gentlemen, it seems like it's been a while since I've seen you guys. We traveled this weekend back home to LA, but it seems like it's been a while, so I'm really looking forward to this episode, not only because I get to spend it with you guys for the next hour and a half, where we get to talk about the college football playoff rankings. It seems like it's something that's been coming for weeks and weeks, but it's finally here. It's like Christmas morning, you wake up super excited, you run downstairs, look at those presents. Instead of that, we get to turn on our TVs and look at the college football playoff rankings, and I'm sure you guys have a lot to say, and we'll get to those in a minute. But before we do, this week's episode is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. The Ridge is a minimal front pocket wallet that's designed to let you ditch your bulky wallet. It comes in titanium, carbon fiber, aluminum, and a whole bunch of other awesome styles and colors. Don't carry around that loaded wallet anymore. It overall looks better, weighs less, and just keeps everything intact. Get 10% off today with free shipping by going to ridgewallet.com/HH. How about that, guys? How about that? But
how about it, man?
Enough talk. Let's dive deep into the college football playoff rankings. And my mic just went out for a second, so maybe it's a little Halloween ghost here in Blaze.
That was my fault.
Oh, all right. So it's just the ghost of BK.
Yep.
That might be even scarier. So let's talk about the college football playoff rankings. Gentlemen, if you're listening to the show right now live, hit us up on Twitter at the HHShow _. We want to hear your thoughts. I tweeted earlier, so we're going to read some of those. But for those that are listening live right now, we want to get your thoughts as well. So tweet us what thoughts you have, whether there's a team that's too high, too low, a team that's not ranked, if you think they got it right for the first try, because as I mentioned, there's a lot that we want to talk about, but let's dive in right now, guys, and let's just start with the top 4. It goes Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Notre Dame. I believe last week when we did our own top 4s, I think I had this for exactly the way it was. I think you guys had pretty much the same. I think you just had Notre Dame and LSU switched, so not much of a difference at this point. It's okay. Josh, I'm going to throw the floor to you. You can start off at the top 4. You can start wherever you want.
All right.
But the college football playoff rankings, the ones that finally matter, how did they do for the very first try?
Well, I think they got it right. Alabama is the clear-cut best team in college football. Aside from our actual Heisman rankings, I don't think there's any doubt Tua Tagovailoa is going to New York City for the Heisman ceremony. At least as of right now, barring some collapse, a bad loss, something like that. So clearly, I think Alabama's the number 1 team in the country at 8-0. Right behind them, Clemson at 8-0. I think Clemson is finally starting to look like a legitimate top 2 team in college football. And, we've talked about them earlier in the season and how we all thought they were good, or whether or not their defensive line was as good as they're supposed to be. But we've also said that a couple of their wins were too close. Things just didn't look good for Clemson early on. Now I'm starting to think that they are a legitimate top 2 team in college football, and they've had some pretty good wins against Syracuse and North Carolina State and Texas A&M, a couple wins that at one point in the season we thought didn't look very good, and now I think they do. And then that goes back to their really good, solid, complete game against North Carolina State. LSU has 3 consecutive wins against teams ranked in the top 25. I think they have, without a doubt, the number 1 resume in the country, and I don't think that's up for debate at all. And then Notre Dame. I mean, the only issue I see with the top 25, and especially with the top 10, is Notre Dame and LSU. I'm fine with LSU at 3 ahead of Notre Dame because I think they have the better resume, but Notre Dame looks good, and I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I'm sold on Notre Dame at 8-0, but the one issue that I do have with the Fighting Irish right now is that it looks like their only really good win right now is Michigan. And we had said for a while that Notre Dame's resume is right up there with LSU's, and unfortunately for the Irish, I don't think those two resumes compete with each other anymore. I think LSU's schedule is leaps and bounds tougher than Notre Dame's. Virginia Tech and Stanford aren't bad wins, but I just think that their only legit win really looks like Michigan, because Michigan is a really good football team. So I'm not taking that away from Notre Dame at all. I just think that these next couple of weeks they're going to need to win convincingly if they're going to keep that number 4 or maybe even a number 3 ranking. But when you've got Ian Book at the helm and a couple of these offensive weapons that they have, I think that they are poised for a top 4 finish in college football, barring, a tragic defeat at the hands of the USC Trojans or something crazy like that.
Look, in terms of this first ranking, I'm with you. I think the College Football Committee hit it just about right on the head. I mean, you look at 3 and 4, LSU and Notre Dame. First off, as just a Notre Dame fan, I'm kind of happy to see LSU at 3, considering there's never been an original number 3 seed to ever finish in a playoff spot. But that's just kind of a skewed stat. In terms of the Irish, I mean, I'm with you in what you said. Notre Dame, in terms of right now, does have the best ranked win of the two teams, because Michigan's the highest team of any of the two teams' combined wins between LSU and Notre Dame. But when you do look at it, LSU, they're in the SEC and they've played a lot tougher teams. And like you said, Josh, I mean, the fact that Virginia Tech's no longer ranked, the fact that Stanford's no longer ranked, that hurts Notre Dame. Having said that, they finish undefeated like we've said all year long. You're going to see them in a top 4 spot. The other part about this is whether we'll ever for sure know this is just kind of to be seen. I mean, bottom line, we'll never really know. I think part of the reason that LSU might have also been at number 3 is to make this game seem a little bit more enticing this weekend with LSU and Alabama, because that game, oh man, that could be the best game of the year. But, I mean, whether you, as a fan, you have Notre Dame at 3, you have LSU at 3, it's all going to be played out. So in terms of the top 4, I think the committee hit it just about right on the head.
Here's some numbers for you. 3 undefeated teams have made the college football playoff all time. None have ever won. 0 teams ranked number 3 have ever made the playoffs in the initial ranking. So it looks like LSU, you're playing in a different bowl game. And 2 teams outside the initial top 10 have ended up making the college football playoff. There are some numbers for you. There's no point in me spewing on and on about this first one because you two just touched on it. What good does it do having me say the same things you guys just said? So there's some data for you. Enjoy it.
I love it. You're the bear.
I am. Has that not been established by now?
We need to get you one of those boards with like the magnets that he just puts on. But instead of doing your own bets, I'll stick to that one for you. My first thing is,
oh God, there's a whiteboard in the studio.
Oh no. Is there a marker in there? I don't even think he can hear. He can't even hear us right now.
Yeah, there are markers in here.
Oh, okay, so we can hear us. Well, my first takeaway is because there's so many weeks left, so at this point, I don't think it really matters who's 1 through 4. I think it's going to play itself out. I kind of just really wish, just for whatever reason, they would have put LSU at 2, just to make this week's game versus Bama a 1 versus 2 matchup, because I think that would have drawn even more viewers. I mean, not that it's going to get enough already. I think that a 1-2 matchup going back to, like, what was it, 2011, when it was hyped up as the game of the century, and the final score was like 6-3. This game's going to be a lot better. So I think that would have been cool if it would have been 1 versus 2. But this 1 through 4, there's no complaints. Bama at 1, that's... Oh, he has a message that says "Hi, Lyle" on it. So yeah,
Lyle gets mad at me for waving my hands behind his camera. So here's this for you, Lyle.
Alabama now he's like Woody Page on Around the Horn.
I think it's
little
backwards.
messages. Oh boy. So Alabama at 1. There's no question to that one. Clemson at number 2. This one, I mean, we've kind of been a little concerned with Clemson over the course of the season. They haven't given us those convincing wins, but the last 2 games, they have looked like one of the more dominant teams in the country, so I think a 2 is where they should be. LSU at number 3, as Lyle mentioned, they easily have the best resume in all of college football. I mean, these wins, now granted, when they played these teams, it's a lot different. It's kind of what you mentioned, Josh, where you talk about Notre Dame. At the time when they beat Stanford and Virginia Tech, those were good wins. At the time now, they're not as good. But when you look at who LSU beat, at the time they beat number 8 Miami. At the time they went on the road, got a win at number 7 Auburn. They beat number 2 Georgia. They beat number 22 Mississippi State. And their only loss was to Florida, who I believe is right around the middle teens or so.
They're at 11.
They're number 11. So that resume is fantastic. You take Miami and Auburn, obviously they're not ranked anymore, so it kind of hurts. But LSU, by far the best resume, but that one loss does hurt. Now, Notre Dame, this is kind of one of those tough ones where they are undefeated. They do have that win against Michigan, which is arguably the best win in college football right now, by far. But you look at who they've beaten. Yeah, they beat Stanford. Yeah, they beat Virginia Tech. Those wins right now aren't looking as good as they were just a few weeks ago. They do have a somewhat, like the ironic thing was, we were talking about earlier in the year how that was going to be the tough part of their schedule. And once they were done with that, they'd be in the clear. Well, Notre Dame's schedule the rest of the way, don't sleep on it because they got Northwestern this week. We'll get to that later in the show. That's going to be a tough one. They got a game against Syracuse, who's ranked for the first time in the college football rankings and like ranked in the first time in the AP poll since like the early 2000s. And they got a game at the Coliseum at the very end that could be very tough as well. So Notre Dame, this is one to keep an eye on because for them, I think if they win out, they're going to be in the playoff, no problem. But if they lose, everything can just spiral out of control. So overall, 1 through 4, I think the committee for the most part got it right, which then brings us to these later ones that round out the top 10. Now, this is where I begin to have some problems and things get interesting. And I'm going to start, guys. I got to love that there's a Pac-12 team ranked in the top 8, but Washington State, they have no reason to be ranked 8th in the country. They have one ranked win as of right now, which is against Utah, and that came by 4 points, so a very close win. They did have a good win against Oregon, but from what we've seen, Oregon's not as good as we thought they were. Their only loss did come to USC. Now, that was kind of a controversial loss. And, I mean, winning a game at the Coliseum is always tough because, speaking of which, Arizona State snapped that record of like 19 consecutive home games for USC. So winning a game at the Coliseum is tough. But that loss to USC definitely is not looking like a good loss. Other than that, they have no wins. I'm not even going to mention who they played in non-conference because that's an absolute joke. I think their non-conference schedule has to combine maybe like 4 to 5 wins, like Wyoming, I think San Jose State. Those are jokes.
And Eastern Washington. So Washington State at number 8. That's all. I think that's a bad one. They're a little high. I mean, I'll give them that.
I think they're without a doubt at this point the best team in the Pac-12.
I don't even know if I would go that far.
Really?
Though.
Who's Utah over them? Or
I think Utah is a fabulous football team.
Yeah.
I think they're really good.
But that's the thing with this community. They talk about resume. They talk about what you've done at this point. And based off resumes, Kentucky deserves to be ranked higher above them. But I think 8 is too high for Washington State.
There's my problem right there, and you just kind of transitioned it. The fact that Wazoo and Kentucky are ahead of Ohio State, I know Ohio State got dismantled by Purdue, but you can't tell me if Ohio State played Kentucky or Wazoo, that one of those teams would prevail. In my mind, there is absolutely no way. I think the Ohio State defense had one bad game. I think they're still one of the 6 or 7 best teams in college football, and I still think they've got a really, really good chance to beat Michigan at the end of the year. So I think it's kind of an atrocity that Kentucky and Wazoo are ahead of them, especially you just talked about Wazoo, Blake, but Kentucky, they just won this week against Missouri on an untimed down, the final play of the game.
Yeah.
And this is the number 9 team in the country we're talking about.
Yeah, and I don't think either of those teams are deserving of being ranked higher than Ohio State because aside from that one game, I mean, you look at the weapons that this Ohio State team has on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they're too deep everywhere. And they could legitimately be a top 5 team in college football with the exception of one bad game, and it's going to happen because look at Michigan. Georgia had one really bad game, and they're at 7. But you look at Washington State, and I think that Washington State is deserving of a top 15 ranking. Mm-hmm. But there's no way that they're going to finish in the top 10 in the final college football playoff ranking. They still have a couple tough games on their schedule, and you look at that SC game, and I think that says a lot about the team because I don't think SC is a fantastic football team, but they have enough talent to compete with anybody, and they will. But that is when you saw SC's pure talent just overpower Washington State, because I don't think it was controversial. I think they got beat, and I think that's the one outlier in their schedule because they lose to a subpar USC team, but they outplay every other Pac-12 team that they play against. But that's the one thing that you got to put another little asterisk next to that as well, because the Pac-12, I don't want to say that it's the worst conference. Right now it probably is, and I think it might be up there with the ACC because I think the ACC has a couple solid teams, but after that, I think it goes downhill pretty quickly. The Pac-12, everybody competes with each other. and that's what I like.
Even Oregon State now beating Colorado.
Yeah.
So we
Oregon
said,
State making a comeback, beating Colorado. Arizona just dismantling Oregon at home on homecoming.
Yeah.
That was insane.
we talked about that, I think it was last week, where we
Yeah.
said it's not necessarily the worst, but I think it's the number one conference in regards to every team
Yeah.
can't compete. And we talked down upon Oregon State and like Arizona, but as we saw this week, every team is capable of winning a game.
Yeah, and just for that reason alone, forget about what talent Washington State has. Forget about their wins. Forget about their one loss to USC. That statement right there just shows why you can't rely. Why Pac-12 fans cannot rely on Washington State to compete for a playoff position. Because the Pac-12 is so competitive that there's no way you can just rely on them to win out.
No, you got a fair point there. I was going to say, because Blake and I talked about this actually on the car ride over, that when you look at the rest of Washington State's schedule, Cal, Colorado, who's now fallen off the second half of the season, Arizona at home, and then UW at home for the Apple Cup. Now, when you look at that on paper, you would think number 8 Washington State could be 4 unranked teams in 4 weeks. I don't think that's a stretch, but like you just talked about, because everything's so close and so competitive, like we just saw this
I think
weekend,
they're going to lose one of them.
I think you could very well be right. However, if they find a way to win out, then you start to get into the hypotheticals of everything. And now, of course, a lot is going to change within even a week to 2 weeks of this whole playoff ranking, because it always does, and a bunch of teams always lose that you don't expect. Having said that, it'd be interesting to see where Washington State is at the end of the year if they find a way to win out and win the Pac-12 title, because are they a top 4 team? I don't think so in any way, but if they're at one loss at the end of the year, it'll be interesting to see what the committee does with them.
Well, sticking on Washington State, this is interesting in regards to, I remember last year after they beat USC, and I think maybe another week or so they were ranked, they found themselves, I think, in the top 10, and you know what happened?
They fell off.
They went to Cal, and Cal beat them by like 30 or 40 points, completely just dismantled them. It was like 30 to 3 in the fourth quarter.
That was the game with the Ross Bowers flip. Remember that?
Yeah, so this Cal team, don't sleep on them, but I want to pose a question to the three of you guys. So I'm sure we're in all agreement where if Kentucky played Wazoo, maybe Kentucky, that'd be an interesting one to see who would win. I still would go with Kentucky. If Ohio State played Wazoo, I think the general consensus is Ohio State would win. If Florida played Wazoo, I think Florida would get the edge on that one. Who do you think's the better team at this moment, Washington State or UCF? Because we're going to get to UCF because a lot of our Twitter mentions right now are asking about UCF. So I guess we'll transition into that, where is UCF too high, too low at 12? And do you think that they're a better team than Washington State?
All of UCF's opponents that they've played this year, not one of them has a winning record.
That's the thing. And we were watching the College Football Playoff,
Yeah.
and they were asking the chairman of it, and they said, okay, what's the reason UCF's at 12? And he said, yeah, they're undefeated. They have like a 20-game winning streak. They don't have a single opponent that's above 500, which, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was high on UCF. I said they should have been top 10. But yeah, looking at their schedule right now, they beat UConn, South Carolina State, Florida Atlantic, Pitt, SMU, Memphis, and East Carolina, where I guess Pitt and Memphis, those are your two best wins, but Memphis was by a point. Pitt was by about 30. They don't have any convincing wins. Now, the good thing for them is their last 2 games of the season are Cincinnati and UCF, but even
USF.
USF. But even South Florida now, they just lost this past week, so that kind of hurts them. So I think for UCF, it's a tough one because although they are undefeated, with who they've been playing, there's no reason to move them up.
Yeah, and Memphis is a pretty decent team as well. They just have a couple of bad losses. Like the loss to Tulane is a bad loss. Missouri is a game that they probably should have lost. I mean, they lost by 32 points, and Missouri's not a bad team. They got a good offense. But Memphis, they put up points. They've got a decent offense. They've got an okay defense, but they're able to run the table against some teams in their conference, but a couple of their losses have been too bad for this win for UCF to look really good.
Yeah, and here's the thing with UCF, and the chairman talked about it today, or I guess depending on when you watched the show yesterday on the show, saying don't be surprised to see UCF move up in the ranks as the weeks go on, because they do play some better opponents like Navy, Cincinnati, USF, and then of course the American Championship, assuming they make that. Here's what you have to remember about UCF though, because unlike you, Blake, when I saw them at 12 today, I thought to myself, they got snubbed. I don't know why they're so low with an undefeated record. You have to try to throw out last season, because while they've won 20 in a row, it's not about last season. And when you look at that team that was the quote-unquote national champs last season.
That was the first thing they said when they came up was, we do not think about last season.
And then that's exactly it. When you look at that team last year, Shaquem Griffin is no longer there. A lot of their talented playmakers are gone. Scott Frost is now the head coach elsewhere. It's a different team. Like, they still have Mackenzie Milton and some good players, but you can't compare last year's team to this year because it's a new team. They're going to have to see how they play against some of these better teams like Cincinnati and USF, and if they can really win out. If they do, I mean, they're still going to need a lot of help if they want any way to even have a chance at the top 4. But for now, I understand why they're at 12.
I think their biggest test, we talked about the Cincinnati and USF game, but this week they play Temple. 5-3, 4-0 in conference on ESPN at 4:30. So a night game on ESPN is Temple UCF. So don't look so far ahead. Take it 1 week at a time. We've seen this last, what's this, the 5th year they've had the college football playoff? The 5th year they've had the rankings?
Yeah.
We've seen every year, as soon as the rankings come out, a top-ranked team, whether it be a top 15, top 10, whatever, they're going to lose to an unranked team.
A&M was 4th 2 years ago.
Yep. Did they lose? It's not
They
uncommon.
weren't ranked at the end of the year.
That was the Dak Prescott team, yeah.
Yeah. You see it all the time. As soon as the college football playoff rankings come out, which are the ones that matter. Sorry, AP people. As great of writers as you are, Sparron, whatever the guy's name was who voted for Clemson 8 weeks into the season for number 1. This is the one that matters, and this is the 1 week out of the year we'll see the most upsets. This past week, though, I think it was, 8 unranked teams beat top 25 teams?
Something like that.
The tied for most ever. It won't get to that number, but we will see some of these big teams. You could see a UCF fall immediately to Temple, and they'll drop out of the rankings, the college football playoff rankings, in my opinion, if they lose to a team like Temple.
I just feel really bad for Utah State. They come in at 18 in the AP poll. I had someone DM me that goes to Utah State, I think, and he was really ecstatic that they were ranked. And I'm saying, yeah, enjoy this while you got it. Yeah, well, they're not even in the college football rankings, so that just kind of falters right there. I'm going to go to Twitter right now and read some of our mentions as regards to what people have to say about the college football playoff rankings. Matthew Bourne says, I think the committee got it right as well. I think that at the moment, LSU deserves that number 3 spot. Keelan says, I'm surprised Iowa State is ranked. Isn't horrible, but it's definitely better than the AP. Good old Andrew Coster says, I would switch Notre Dame and LSU in the top 4. Besides that, I think Houston and Georgia Southern both deserve to be in the top 25. I think Houston definitely got snubbed. We could talk about later teams we thought were snubbed, but Houston, very good win this week against South Florida. Let's see what else we got here. Cage the Cat says, no real complaints, but it's obviously going to get shaken up because of the Bama LSU game. Of course. Max Sphere says, great. UCF at 12 is great. If they put that horrid strength of schedule team above Ohio State, Washington State, etc., I may have flipped. Good thing that didn't happen. Ryan Fravel says Notre Dame is overall a better complete team. LSU is just like Kentucky. They have a good defense, but really no offensive attack. Aimbook can actually go win you a game if you need it. And there's a whole bunch of other ones here. Aaron Pullman says, I think Army, Utah State, Texas Tech, and Houston should have been ranked as well. So those are some of the mentions we got on Twitter, but keep interacting with us. Keep tweeting at us at the HH Show _. But one team I want to talk about right now, or Lyle, if you want to talk about something really quickly as well.
Just before we get into some of those lower tier teams, I just want to propose a question to everybody and hear what they have to say. Because we're talking about this LSU-Bama game this week, of course, because it might be the game of the year. If LSU finds a way to win this game, what happens with the rankings? Because then things really get jumbled up. And they were talking about that on the show on ESPN today, too. If LSU finds a way to win, is there 2 SEC teams in the top 4? Does somebody get knocked out? I mean, what happens from here on out?
I think if you have to have a one-loss LSU team as the number 1 team in the country.
I think LSU goes to 1 in Alabama at the absolute worst. It will. I mean,
it all depends.
Do you bump Clemson or Notre Dame if they don't win? I mean, if they win.
It depends on the Georgia game because Georgia plays Kentucky this week, which is a 6 versus 9 matchup.
See, I don't even
it's a nice matchup.
I don't even think that matters because even if Georgia wins, that's still, it's all about the top 4 and Clemson or Notre Dame and who gets bumped out, who doesn't. Like Georgia, Kentucky, that'll be affected maybe later down the road in terms of the SEC title game. But like I said, if LSU finds a way to win, I think you're right. There's no way Bama moves out of the top 4. But somebody has to.
I mean, you
I
also
think it
gotta
would be
keep in
Notre
mind
Dame.
Who does Notre Dame play this week?
They play Northwestern.
No.
They would be the only team that could potentially drop out with a win because here's another thing you have to keep in mind. Michigan plays Penn State, and if number 5 Michigan beats number 14 Penn State in convincing fashion, that could be enough of an argument to move them into the top 4 if there's some sort of shakeup within those top 4 teams.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, just somehow just thinking about it. Yeah, I guess the top 4 doesn't have to change in terms of the teams if LSU wins. I guess if you just flip-flop Bama and LSU and keep Clemson at 2, Notre Dame at 4.
Let's say everybody wins. It should be LSU, it should be Clemson, it should be then either Notre Dame or Bama or vice versa. But then again, you have to keep in mind what else is happening, because it would be really sad to see Notre Dame win convincingly over Northwestern and then fall out, say, what if Michigan just absolutely blows out Penn State?
Well, again, I think like we talked about last week, what's kind of Michigan's Achilles heel right now is that week 1 loss to Notre Dame. Now, while Michigan's strength of schedule might be better toward the end of the year, I think
maybe
head-to-head matchups is something that they take into account very seriously. However, this is why these hypotheticals are always so fun, because there's so many different things that could happen, and if LSU finds a way to win, then it's real chaos in college football.
I'm looking at the rest of the rankings right now, and I remember it was the first year, I believe, I think they said that Ohio State came in, I want to say 16th overall in the very first playoff ranking. They ended up, of course, winning it all. So I'm looking like through this kind of like 12 through 17 kind of range for teams, and I believe there's only one team that has a chance to make a leap to the college football playoff, and that's West Virginia. I mean, they're sitting there at 13. They're 6-1, but they have, I mean, arguably one of the toughest remaining schedules, but they have probably the most helpful schedule. So they have a game this week at Texas, who's ranked number 17. Then they got TCU, Oklahoma State, 2 teams you should beat, and then the final game of the year versus number 7 Oklahoma. So I think West Virginia, if West Virginia is able to win these 4 games, get to the Big 12 title game and win that, barring something that happens at the top, I think West Virginia is going to find themselves in the top 4.
Like I said earlier in the show, there are 2 teams all-time that have made it outside of the top 10 from the initial rankings. That was in 2014 when Ohio State was 16, and 2015 when Oklahoma was ranked 15th.
Yeah, and that's actually something I have in my notes, Blake. With Texas, TCU, Oklahoma State, and OU still on West Virginia's schedule, if they go 4-0 in these next couple games, that puts them at 10-1. With wins over that many ranked teams, there's no reason why they shouldn't be considered to make the college football playoff. And I'm not saying I think they will go 4-0, but if they do, there's no reason why they shouldn't be. And then you can make a similar argument for Oklahoma. They're currently ranked 7th. Say they win out, and then you still have that game against Texas where they were getting blown out, and then they come back and lose by a field goal in the final seconds. I think even that can speak volumes, especially if Texas remains a solid and competitive football team the rest of the year. I think you can make an argument for both these Big 12 schools in West Virginia and OU.
And don't forget about that Big 12 title game now at the end of the year,
it's
where
big.
If West Virginia finds a way to win 4 straight, including beating Texas in Austin and Oklahoma, which would be at home, but 2 top 20 teams.
And then a title.
Right, and then a title game. I mean, I don't want to say it's a slam dunk, but it's there for them. The path is there. They just have to execute.
Now, because I'm looking at this top 10 or so right now, and the teams that I consider to still be in it are the top 4, Michigan, Georgia, I want to say Oklahoma, Ohio State, and then like West Virginia. But I'm just trying to figure all these scenarios out in my head where, let's just say Alabama loses to LSU, right? And let's just say that Alabama falls to 3, and I'm looking at Georgia here because Georgia still has a chance. I'm trying to figure out if they're going to have 2 SEC teams in the top 4, which you very well could have. Clemson, the rest of their schedule is fairly easy because the ACC, although the ACC has a lot of teams that are ranked, we can all agree that this is not the best the ACC's been in the last few years because NC State, Syracuse, Boston College, very respectable teams, but they're not going to give Clemson. Yeah, Virginia, they're not going to give Clemson a fight for their money. So it puts Clemson in an interesting situation because if they drop one of these final games, could possibly I can't see Clemson being left out. Where it's like I
think Clemson's like Notre Dame. If they lose another game from here on out, I think they're done because their strength of schedule moving forward is not tough enough for them to earn a college football playoff spot if they lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree because Clemson, looking at who they've beaten this year, they did get the win against Texas A&M. Was a close game, but it was on the road, so that's a really good win. Close game against Syracuse, but Syracuse, they're a good team, so that was a good win. NC State, that one was a very convincing one. NC State's a good team, but the rest of their way, the toughest game is going to be Boston College, and I think that's going to be an easy one for Clemson. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if a team like Clemson loses, or like you said, Notre Dame, that's just the one guarantee where if they lose, they're out. I don't think there's any chance they have. So if they lose, they're out. The Michigan-Ohio State game, I think whoever wins that one might find themselves in the playoff because they're probably going to most likely have to face like a Northwestern in the Big Ten title game, and I think they'll win that easily. But there's definitely a lot of shakeups to happen. But looking at the rest of this list, guys, let's just throw some love to some of these teams, like Syracuse coming in at number 19, Fresno State coming in at 23, Virginia coming in at number 25. It really doesn't mean that much for them because they have no chance to get into the top 10. But props to you guys. Major shout out to those teams.
Way to go, Syracuse friends.
And you were saying about Fresno State earlier today, isn't their offense and defense like top 5 in the country?
Well, I know their offense at least is one of the better ones in the country and higher up there. But I think last week we were talking about best defenses, and I think when Brady was looking up the stats on Sports Reference, I don't know if he can get him up again, whatever he found, but he said like Fresno State overall, like defense, whatever number it was he had, was one of the best. But yeah, looking at Fresno State, or whoopsie, I typed Hawaii because oopsie. Fresno State, I mean,
Because oopsie.
because oopsie. Fresno State, I mean, they haven't really beaten anyone this year, but these are the amount of points they've scored this year, guys. 79, 49, 50, and then the rest are kind of like 30s and whatnot, so, you hate to see it. But yeah, Fresno State, surprisingly, one of the better teams, unknown teams in the country, so shout out to you guys. Fresno State's ranked, but yet Auburn's not. Or Washington, or some of these other powerhouses, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, though? Give some of these group of 5 teams some love. Washington, I mean, they don't look anywhere near the way they have been the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, they've lost a couple of games that they really shouldn't have. And then, I mean, look at that Auburn game, week 1. Auburn's nowhere near as good as we thought they were going to be. So, I mean, it's for the Fresno State, the way they're putting up numbers and the way they're blowing out teams, yeah, they're not, I guess, quality teams, but they're still 7-1.
Fresno State, 4th ranked overall defense.
Yeah.
Updated now. Clemson's number 1.
All right. Also, guys, I think it's safe to say Texas is not back after all.
Texas is not back.
Like we talked about with Texas, I wanted to see them get one more big ranked win when they got to that West Virginia type or part of their schedule and see if they could find a way to pull out that win. Even Iowa State. But you lose to unranked Oklahoma State, and I think that kind of proved it. It was a close game, and Oklahoma State's not a pushover. But Texas, they're getting there, but they're not quite back.
I mean, and they do still have a couple games left. I mean, they closed the season on the road at mighty Kansas. But other than that, I mean, this week they host West Virginia. And then after that, they play Texas Tech and Iowa State, and I still don't think either of those teams are pushovers either. So, I mean, they could still do a little bit of damage, but I think their overall push for a playoff spot has gone down the drain.
Yeah, but week 1 has come and gone for the college football playoff rankings. Overall, I think they did a fairly good job. I like what they did, what they showed, how they all, I guess, wear like these Nike hats, and they all put them like on the hat rest, whatever you call it,
the
before
hat
the
rack.
I didn't know they did that.
You guys see Paula Boven in the video?
Oh, of course.
ASU professor.
Do you
Paula
see that
Boven.
cookie she tweeted out?
Oh my gosh, she tweeted out this cookie and this glass of milk that was waiting for her in her hotel room. And my goodness, I have never been so hungry and so jealous of a single person in my entire life.
The cookie was the length of a fork.
Ooh.
It looked
I
delightful.
I can go for a cookie, but unfortunately, I'm on a diet, so the cookie is going to have to wait.
I thought the diet started tomorrow.
It's been going on. So now, usually, guys, we always talk about kind of our Heisman picks, but essentially, whoever's the guys that were in our top numbers, they didn't really play this week. So I can assume from last week, none of our top Heisman picks changed.
Other than I'd say now,
I've got N'Keal Harry at number 1.
Yes, N'Keal Harry
yes,
for every
that-
major award ever.
Oh my God, just go look up that catch, please, if you didn't see it this weekend. But the only thing I'd change is I have Gardner Minshew at number 4 now because he deserves some love.
You know
That's
who the
about it.
very, very
Absolutely.
last person in my Heisman in every award category is right now? Iman Marshall. Stay out of my pictures.
BK, text me the photo and I'll put it on the screen
I
right now
will.
because for those of you that did see, N'Keal Harry had the greatest catch of the season, probably one of the better ones in recent memory, and Brady got an absolute amazing photo of it, but it was blocked by Iman Marshall, who literally ruined the best photo of the year.
He's number 8 in the picture, by the way. Also, you want to play mine and Lyle's calls right here?
Hey, if you can text
if
those,
you can give me some highlights real
if
quick.
you can text those and send those to me,
All right.
that would be fantastic. But enough talk of the college football playoff. It's time to talk about Blake's bets.
Hang on, Blake. I'm texting you this picture. All right.
No, it's all good. All right, I got
There
the
we go.
picture. That's a great photo.
Let it hit.
All right. Now got to
Copyright.
avoid copyright. So so there it goes. Blake's bets, guys. Last week wasn't that good of a week. I went 2 for 5 overall on the season. I am 21 445. So we got to try to get back up to 500. My 5 bets of the week. These are the 5 ones I think you should bet on. If you want to bet, head on over to bovada.com. Use my link in the referral. And you guys sign up, and they'll give you 50% of whatever your first deposit is. Go ahead and make some bets. Someone this past weekend made some bets. They deposited $40. So whoever you were that deposited $40, I hope you guys won your bets. My first one is West Virginia and Texas. We talked about this game. Texas is favored in this game. Texas is favored. I like West Virginia at the +2. Okay, take those 2 points. Houston and SMU. We talked about Houston earlier. I think Houston deserves to be ranked in the top 25. They dismantled South Florida this week. I like them at 13 over SMU. I really do. Arizona State and Utah. This game will be here at Sun Devil Stadium at a nice 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff time.
Yay.
And Utah's favored by 7. ASU in all of their losses, they've been within 7 points. I think ASU, although Utah might be the best team they've played this year up to this point, I think that they can hang with them. I think they can hang with those Utes. Oregon and UCLA. UCLA, they've won 2 games now. It seems like just not so long ago they were winless. Oregon's favored by 7.5. I think Oregon wins by a lot more than that. And the final one, this one was the most shocking when we heard about it, and that is LSU, Alabama. LSU's at home, and Alabama's favored by 14.5 points. So these odds makers, they're expecting LSU to get blown out of this game. I think Alabama wins. Spoiler for my pick'em, but I think LSU can hang with them. I really do. And asking Alabama to win by more than 2 touchdowns at LSU, I think that could be a lot. So I do like LSU with a +14.5, and those are Blake's bets of the week. Now, if you make some of Blake's bets, send them to us on Twitter so we can see how you're doing. A few weeks ago, this one guy, he deposited like $25, and he made about 20 like dollar bets. He had a good time, you know. I don't know if he won them all, but as long as you're having fun, that's what really matters. Now, we are going to transition. Oh, what do you want, BK?
I got a little treat for you.
Oh, I like treats.
Want to hear this? Here you go.
In punt formation.
Oh, hey.
Harry to return, set up at his own 8-yard line. Punt is away. ASU almost got back there. End over end. Hauled in by Harry inside the 10. Tries to cut it back against the grain. He gets a block. He takes it inside his own 5-yard line. Gets a huge block out across the 10 to the 15 to the 20. Gets a block down the sideline. There he goes. N'Keal Harry. He's going to do it again. N'Keal Harry down the sideline. 92 yards. Touchdown, Arizona State.
That's the first time I'm hearing it. Job well done, Josh.
Thank you.
That's a darn good call. Who
Who
was on the call?
N'Keal does it again. He
sorry.
makes these plays. It is beyond me how number 1 just stayed in bounds.
Who was Lyle? Were you on the call for the N'Keal catch?
Yeah, that was me. I'll send it. I'll
I
send it to
almost
you.
ruined that because I jumped out of my chair and I almost flipped the desk over the side of the press box down to the people
In
below.
all fairness,
Lyle.
we all jumped. I thought I was going to fall off the railing. I couldn't believe he made
Lyle,
the catch. But Blake, I'll send it
to
your
me.
way.
Send it to me. I'll play it on the show.
Because I was going to say, I'm glad you guys each got a good N'Keal Harry play.
Besides me missing the picture of the N'Keal Harry catch, I got the picture. Iman Marshall was just in the way. My camera, it shoots like 10 pictures a second. Crazy. I'm firing, I'm going, and then all of a sudden it just stopped on me. And I look at my screen, it's like, an error has occurred, please restart your camera. And I was like, no, I didn't get the picture. Well, it turns out I got it, but I didn't.
You hate to see it. You hate to see it. Now, exciting times here, guys, because we have about 35 minutes that we're going to do for specifically a Q&A.
All right.
You know, the last few episodes, we've had about 5 to 10 minutes to do Q&A, so I made sure this week we had a lot of time. We got a lot of good questions, and you know what, guys? We're going to open up those phone lines.
Let's go.
So Brady, get ready. But don't worry, Brady. What we're going to do is we're going to ask a question from YouTube and Twitter. That way you can answer. Then you can shield a call, put it on hold, whatever, and then we can work that. Because, of course, we don't want you to be left out of the Q&As. You're what makes the Q&As.
Right.
We got to have you in them. So I'm gonna open up the phone line. We're going to answer some other questions as well. We're going to go for 35 minutes. So if you got a question for us, hit us up on Twitter or give us a call. The number to call for the Q&A is 602-496-5156. The number is 602-496-5156. While we wait for our first caller, here's the first question, guys. This comes from the Sports Gamer. He wants to know, which is more likely, Alabama losing a game or ASU running the table and making a New Year's Six bowl game? Which is very possible. If they literally just win out, they're in the Rose Bowl.
That's true, but it ain't going to happen.
Hey, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I'm going to say Bama losing a game.
I'm going to go with Bama, too. I mean, Georgia, somebody, LSU, playoff game. I'm going to go with Bama.
I'm going Bama. You want,
Yeah.
you want some music onto this at all, Blake? Because we're going to do so much Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
You want some music? What do you want? I'll find
Something that's
for
not copyrighted.
you. All right, I'll get you some instrumental stuff. How about
Ah,
this?
perfect.
Play all the
perfect.
copyrighted stuff. Oh. Okay.
All right, guys. What this
Some logic?
This comes from Big Quineller _63. You know what? I'm not taking a chance at the copyright. We're going to be talking
We're not
about.
going to.
We don't need some music. This
I'll
comes
pull up
from
some royalty free.
This comes from no, we don't need any
Okay,
music. It's
okay.
all good. This comes from Big _Quineller _63. He says, "Which school has the best fight song?" By the way, love the show, guys. Keep up the great work.
Obvious answer. So I'm just going to go on to myself. Josh, go ahead. What's your answer?
I got 3.
Okay.
SC, Michigan, Tennessee.
I'll go Notre Dame, SC, and I'll go ASU's just because we go there. But disclaimer, it took me a long time to learn that fight song.
Yeah.
Michigan, USC. Michigan's is the best.
What? Oh.
Michigan's is hands down the best.
You can never. go
Michigan's
wrong.
also the only one that proclaims themselves already victorious.
I like
If you
it.
didn't know that.
I like it. You can't go wrong with SC. We were walking around the Coliseum the other day, and they started playing before the game started, and I was just getting really hyped.
It's
I-
great.
I learned how to
SC
play-
marching bands just.
I learned how to play the fight song on my trumpet when I was like in middle school because
Really?
it was the coolest thing. I don't know
Can
how
you
I
still play it?
Oh, I still can.
Let's hear it.
Let me get the trumpet out from the basement in my house back home in Monrovia, California.
You guys have a basement?
No, we don't. It's in
I was
my
gonna
clo-
say I don't have a basement.
It was in my closet. It just sounds a little cooler.
Yeah, California houses don't have a whole lot of basements, do they?
Or attics. I don't think that's a thing really in California.
yeah, we don't really have an attic either.
All right, so it looks like Brady's shielding the caller. So we'll do one more question. This comes from Colton Hearn. He says, if you could interview a quarterback, now he says from one of the top 25 teams, I'll just make it in all of college football. So if you could interview any quarterback in all of college football, who would you pick?
Oh man, that's interview any quarterback.
Any quarterback.
Any quarterback. I mean, I guess Tua. Let's get Tua on the show. You know who I think the 3 most interesting could be Will Grier, Tua, and then Kyler Murray.
I was gonna
because Kyler Murray, he's a 2-sport athlete.
I was going to ask about that would have been mine as Kyler Murray, just
Yeah.
because I said at the beginning of the year, I just wondered if somewhere in the back of his head, with the fact that the money he's going to make playing baseball, make him any more cautious on the football field. Now I know D1 athletes and borderline pro athletes like he is usually can find ways to block that out, but I just always wondered about it, and the fact that he's played so well at Oklahoma this year and is a Heisman contender, I think he'd be a fantastic guy to talk to.
Brady?
I didn't hear the question. I was
Oh.
answering phone calls.
Oh, so the question is, if you could interview any quarterback in college football, who would it be
Currently?
currently?
That's a good one. Will Grier. I feel like Will Grier will be a cool one, just everything around him, because you see a lot of quarterbacks that are like, oh, they're quiet. Well, Will Grier's brother was famous before he was.
When I saw that story, I was in
Yeah.
shock because I knew who that
And
guy was. and
Will
didn't know.
Grier's wife is slightly attractive.
Oh boy. Oh, Brady. My answer is I like the Kyler Murray one just because of the whole thing where it'd be interesting to talk to him about, one, being a Heisman contender, two, being a top 10 pick in the MLB draft. I think that's very interesting. But I also did like the Will Grier one. And it'd be interesting to hear from Tua as well because I feel like he's a very quiet guy. You never really hear from him that much. So it'd be interesting to see as well. But we do have our first caller of the night. Brady, put him on.
BH, I think you know who this is. It's one of your good buddies. He's from Clemson. Andrew, you there?
Yes, sir.
I was just waiting. I was trying to like throw you off, Brady, to make it seem like I didn't know. Andrew, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How about you guys?
Oh, we are doing fantastic. Now, Andrew, it's always something different from you. It's either we get a Clemson question or we get something that's completely just out of right field that we absolutely love. That's always a fantastic question. So I'm very interested to know what tonight's choice is.
It's actually not a Clemson question again, actually. So my question is, Florida State right now is sitting at 4-4, and they've got a pretty tough schedule remaining. They still got to play NC State and Florida, and a couple other tough games. But is this the year that the nation's longest bowl streak finally comes to the end, even though it should have come to an end last year?
Yeah, I remember last year there was a lot of controversy to it because I believe they did have 5 wins, I want to say, but then they were one of those teams that like made it in because for whatever reason they had the advantage. Oh, that's a tough one. So you said they had 4 wins right now. I'm looking at the remainder of their schedule. They got NC State, they got Notre Dame, they got Boston College, and they got Florida. I think this is the year. Oh,
They're going to lose out.
I
think they're going to lose out.
If they have any hope, I think it's against NC State and Boston College. But I think even one of those. So I don't know if you have what the exact year is, but I remember it's something that's gone on our entire life where I believe they've been making bowl games. So I think, barring something where they win 5 games again and they get a lucky draw, I think this is the year it comes to an end, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State, they just don't have it. We were saying it this weekend. DeAndre Francois, man, that guy fell off the map. We were hyping him up coming back from his injury this year. We thought he had a chance to be pretty good, and they just have not had it as a team this year.
Yeah, it's 36 consecutive seasons.
Beat me to it. Beat me to it, Josh.
Haha.
That's unbelievable. So it looks like
I had to turn my microphone back on.
Well, it looks like it's going to come to an end, no thanks to their 50-point loss at the hands of Clemson this week. I don't know if you heard us earlier, but we were just saying how, I'm sure you can say this as well, where Clemson, they've just turned it into a new gear. They've just figured it out. And Trevor Lawrence, my goodness, he's looking like the quarterback for the next few years. So I'm sure for you, Andrew, that was a very happy Saturday morning for you over there.
Oh, it was. I mean, just the team, ever since that Syracuse game, I mean, you go back and look at that game against Syracuse where they had to put in Chase Bryce as their third-string quarterback, well, second string at that time, and then just come back and make a huge comeback win against Syracuse at the time, which didn't look good at the time, but now it's looking a lot better. I think it was just a wake-up call for this team. I think ever since then, if you also go back, Desmond Howard made a couple comments about Clemson being a finesse team that apparently got under that team's skin as well. They've just been on a whole different team. But wow, I'm finally happy to say it's that stupid war chant they do at Florida State. You can say, "Ball eligible, ball eligible."
I love it.
I'm just going to be happy to say that one when it's all said and done, because realistically, I don't think they're going to get the 6 wins. Not a chance.
Dude, I feel like now, just because you're saying this, they're somehow going to squeak out a win against like Notre Dame and Florida to end the season.
we need to tweet that clip.
I know.
That was so good.
I'll tweet it, but Andrew, thanks again for calling and listening, my man, and best of luck this week. You guys got a tough one against 2-win Louisville.
Yeah, Blake, I was actually hoping that you would say to take the under, because the last 2 weeks, when you've been saying to take the under against Clemson spread, they've actually covered the spread.
I know.
So I was a little disappointed.
I think Clemson is scoring more points than whatever the over-under is, because Clemson's just been going off. So whatever I say, it's going to happen. So I'll say Clemson, they're not going to win by 40 points. So
okay,
they're going to win by 50.
Spread. Maybe I'll go bet online for you.
All right, sounds good, Andrew. Have yourself a good night, and good luck the rest of the week with your classes.
All right, thank you, man. You too.
All right, my man. All right, I love that. I love that chant. It's going to be stuck in my head the rest of the night. So we'll definitely tweet that. But now we wait for another caller. Let's do some more Q&A questions. This comes from Fabulous Burger.
I love burgers.
And he wants to know, they asked the question on this show earlier, and it says, what is more likely to happen? 3 undefeated teams at the end of the season make the playoff, or a 2-loss team getting in?
They said that they were talking about this on the show today, on the ESPN Top 25 show. To be honest, right now I'm going to say 3 undefeateds, and that's only because of how things are looking to play out right now. Because if you ask me, how it's looking is it's going to be 1 SEC team, probably Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and then one of the Big Ten teams. So right now, I would say it would be really tough for a 2-loss team to get in. However, we see every year there's upsets and just shocking losses, and all of a sudden things are thrown in a jumble. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it shaken up later in the year. For now, I'll say 3 undefeateds.
With that being said, I know that there's going to be some sort of shakeup, some sort of upset. So I'm going to go ahead and say a 2-loss team gets in, because I think LSU can get in. I mean, say they lose to Alabama, they're not going to lose to Arkansas or Rice, and I think they beat Texas A&M at the end of the season. So that's still the best resume in college football, with a loss to Alabama. And even if it is a loss, I still think it's going to be a close game.
See, the tough thing about LSU, and I think they deserve to be top 4, is going to be the fact that if they lose to Bama, they're not going to be able to have that SEC title game appearance. which I feel like could hurt them. But I agree. I think we could see possibly a 2-loss team. But looking at what the rankings are, I think most likely the 2-loss team would have to be LSU at this point, because all these other teams that are ranked in like the top 6 or 7, they have 1. And if like a Michigan loses, if a Georgia loses, they're out. So I think it's going to happen. I think for the undefeated teams, there actually is a chance. It would be Notre Dame, Clemson, and Alabama.
What was the question? So I can answer it real quick.
So pretty much, what do you think has a higher chance of happening? 3 undefeated teams making the college football playoff, or having a 2-loss team make it? So essentially, what do you think? If you think it's going to be LSU that makes it in, or if just Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame all go undefeated?
I'd say Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. Yeah.
Because here's what you have to remember about LSU is Bama got into the playoff last year without playing in a title game. Well, they're also Bama and have that swagger and the name brand. And they also only had 1 loss. So LSU would have 2 losses and not play in a title game. I just think that would be a little bit tough, although they still have one of the best resumes in college football.
There's a legitimate chance that both happen.
Yeah.
I just want there to be chaos.
Yeah.
I want there to be chaos. Make our jobs more exciting next week. Have everyone lose. Have everyone go down. Let's have there be a tie.
No teams.
Yeah, no teams.
Blue Mountain State.
Just no teams.
No
more teams.
All right, so we got our next caller right now.
Yeah.
So
Max from the land where quarterbacks and coaches go to die. We have Max from Cleveland.
Max from Cleveland. Max, I got to ask you, from Cleveland, who is your team? I think I can guess, but let's hear it.
Yeah, if you're going to guess, it's the Buckeyes.
There we go. There we go. All right, Max, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, after that embarrassing loss to Purdue last week, which I don't even want to talk about that, as we go on to the season and play Michigan State, Michigan, do you think that a win over those 2 big-time teams will put us in over like an independent Notre Dame or an LSU if they beat Alabama in that scenario?
I think Ohio State at this point's in the driver's seat, whereas if they just win out, if they beat Michigan and they beat whoever they beat in the Big Ten title game, likely going to be like a Northwestern, I think they're going to be fine. But it just all comes down to essentially that Michigan game, because that Michigan game is the Big Ten title game. So for Ohio State, I don't think at this point they really need to worry about what other teams are doing, because there's a lot of top 10 matchups, and random teams are going to fall to like random teams. We talked about like Washington State might lose to Cal. So Ohio State, if they just went out, I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they're able to get these last couple wins, I mean, they're 7-1. And I still, like I said earlier on the show, I still think they are a legitimate top 5 team in college football, barring that one loss to Purdue. Like you said, it was pretty embarrassing. And if they're able to come back and beat Michigan and win out, Big Ten championship game, there's no reason why they shouldn't make it.
Yeah, like Blake said, I think they control their own destiny, and I think there's going to be one Big Ten team in the playoff when it's all said and done. So as long as Ohio State does what they need to do and win out, I think they can absolutely make the playoff.
And it's going to be interesting to see. Well, Max, thank you for staying up. I know it's past midnight over there, so we really appreciate it.
That's no problem. Love the show.
All right, thank you, and have a good night.
You too.
Yeah, that's one of those interesting storylines, because Ohio State and Michigan are in a very interesting situation where the Big Ten title game, it looks like it's not going to be. I mean, no disrespect to Northwestern, no disrespect to maybe like Wisconsin if they somehow get in, but the game of the year is going to be that Michigan-Ohio State game, and I think whoever wins that game is clearly going to be in the driver's seat in regards to making it. I think Michigan more so than Ohio State, because Ohio State has a lot to come over, so they're going to do that. So while Brady answers that call, we're going to do another question right here, and this comes from Tyler Steinbach. He says, people keep talking about UCF strength of schedule, but they're trying to get Power 5 teams to play us, but they won't. For example, we were going to play Texas last year, but they postponed it until 2023 and then completely backed out of the deal. So, how is UCF going to get the respect from Power 5 teams if they just simply won't play them? Because UCF, they're trying. They're trying to schedule these games, to show that they're a good team that needs to be respected, but what does UCF have to do at this point?
I'm going to keep this short and sweet. This is why there needs to be an 8-team playoff period.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But if they're not going to expand to the 8 teams, then they need to figure out a way to schedule at least some more moderately tough opponents. And if they do that and they find success, they're going to turn into a modern Boise State. Because Boise State was able to schedule, like, they played Oregon and they beat them. If they can schedule some decent teams, like Oregon was. Or what year was that? Was that 2007, 2008? Oregon was on the come up still. This was not a Marcus Mariota team. This was not like anybody as a top 5 team at the moment, but Oregon was still relatively a top 15 team. So if they can schedule somebody in the top 25 and get a relevant win, they can start earning more national respect.
I like that. So we have a caller right now, and I believe this is a friend of Josh
yes.
and Lyle's, but I'll let him introduce himself. Who is this calling us right now?
This is Peter Warren from Evanston, Illinois, here for a couple questions of you guys, your wonderful crew right here.
Oh, great to hear. Now, Peter,
my man Pete.
Peter. Now, I did hear that your team is Northwestern. Is this true?
Yes, it is. The best 3-loss team in the country, I must
he's already coming in with the hot takes right now.
No, I'll tell you this. I answered the phone on the Harris highlight show, and he goes, "You guys are talking a lot about 2-loss teams. What about the 3-loss teams?" I'm like, let me put you on first.
That's
Hang
Peter.
on, buddy.
Now, I remember, literally right before we did our first episode, Josh was like, I have this friend. His name is Peter. He's a Northwestern fan.
Is he the one that drove down for the Purdue game?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Blake.
And he's a Northwestern fan. We got to get him on the show. And I look at Josh and I say, Josh, why would we have a Northwestern fan on the show? Why would we do that? And now, weeks later, after seeing that Northwestern is in the driver's seat to be in the Big Ten title game, I turned to Josh last week and said, Josh, your Northwestern friend, we need to get him on now because this is fantastic. Northwestern is this team that's coming out of nowhere. As he mentioned, the best 3-loss team in the country, potentially going to be in the Big Ten title game, potentially being in the Rose Bowl if all things go well. So we need to get him on. So this is new to me, so I don't know if we're going to be talking Northwestern. I don't know what you got for us, but Peter, let's hear it, my man.
Well, I would like to say, if I remember correctly, Josh did have Northwestern on that first show as one of his sleepers in the Big Ten. So
Yes, I did.
For picking that correctly.
Thanks for remembering, Pete.
Hey, I remember all the great takes from you, Josh, and your bad ones. They're more bad than good. But
That's true.
That's believable.
I mean, Lyle's the one with the great takes.
Hey, there we go.
Boy.
But, so, I mean, obviously, very big week for Northwestern here, even though it doesn't really play into the conference play. But this Notre Dame game, I don't know if you guys really understand. This weekend's probably the biggest weekend, arguably, in the history of modern Northwestern athletics. You have Welsh Ryan opening up for basketball on Friday, with Notre Dame under the lights at Ryan Field. It's going to be probably packed, and it's going to be mostly Notre Dame fans. And it's honestly going to be, I don't know if you guys saw the Nebraska game where we almost lost. It was mostly Nebraska fans. Northwestern is never really having a true home court or home field advantage. So it's going to be, I think, a really great game. I'm interested. What do you guys have to say about that?
I'll let Lyle take this one over since he's the Notre Dame fan.
You know what? And Peter and I were talking about this. He sent me a message over Snapchat. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago when I said, look, the teams Notre Dame's going to play from here on out are inferior to them. This is a top 5 team in the country. 2 minutes later, I see my Snapchat notification pull up from Peter Warren, and it says, Northwestern is not inferior. How dare you? But you know what, Peter? I got to tell you, this is going to be a close game. The last time these two teams played, as you know, Northwestern won that game. So they can figure out Notre Dame, even though that team a few years ago I'd say was a lot worse than the one they've got kind of figured together now. However, I think this is going to be a one-score game, and I think this could honestly come down to who has the football last. Because you look at Northwestern, they've been really hot as of late, and Notre Dame, this is a team that just struggled against a Pitt team that they should have blown out of the water. So, Ian Book's a great football player. They got a solid running back in Dexter Williams, but this Northwestern team is no pushover, I got to say.
Peter, I have a question for you. You said you're at Northwestern. Have you been to that new practice facility they have right on the water that's all glass and everything?
Yeah, Ryan Fieldhouse.
Is it?
I was there last week for a fencing tournament, and it was quite grand for that as well.
So you're still covering fencing?
Of course.
I love it.
Is the building amazing, though? Is it so cool?
Yeah, it's really, really nice. I was talking with the athletic director here, Paul Kennedy, a really great man. We had a meeting in there, and it's honestly state of the art. I don't know if any of you've ever been here in Northwestern, but it's literally steps away from the water. It's steps away from our own private beach here on campus. The actual field house itself with the football field is stupendous. I've heard the food inside the facility is also great. So, they really did a great job, especially with the amount of money they spent.
Dude, I'm gonna hit up Ridgewalt and see if they can sponsor a Harris Highlights trip out to Northwestern because that sounds amazing. I'm down to visit Northwestern.
It's a cool campus. It's in a city.
It sounds like a good time. But Peter, what else do you have for us?
So I mean, you guys mentioned sort of a little bit there about possibly LSU with a 2-loss team. Do you guys think they're going to beat Alabama this week?
You're just gonna have to keep listening to the show, Pete.
I'm just going to tell you, I think it's out there.
Well, I mean,
we can't go spoiling
we just can't spoil. See, I'm going to bring up something else. I'm going to bring up something else later. Before we let you go, though, can you guess what I'm wearing right now?
Are you wearing the quarter zip?
I'm wearing the quarter zip, baby. Chatham Anglers. Oh, man. That's Bink
Big
right
Chatham
there.
A's
That's
guy.
Bink.
You guys are adorable. But Peter, we really appreciate you calling into the show. It's been long overdue. And somehow, some way, if Northwestern pulls this off against Notre Dame, set your schedule next week where you're free because you're calling in. And you're telling us how they did it.
And keep tuning in, keep listening to this week's show so you can hear our LSU Bama picks and so you can hear how the Chatham Anglers will again make a come up on this show.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Now I definitely have to listen. I got math homework due tomorrow, but I can afford to get another F, right?
All right. My guy Pete.
That was my motto throughout stats this year. So, Peter, thank you.
Get degrees, boys.
Thank you so much. I know we'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Great job, guys. Love the show.
Thanks. Man.
See you, Pete.
See ya.
Dude, the best part of that interview is just after we started talking to him, because I've never seen what this guy looks like. Brady sent me a photo, and he just has the most luscious fro you've ever seen.
It's the best.
It's fantastic.
It really is. We've had our friend Brady
Luscious.
Vernon on this show before, and I've said 1,000 times, Peter is the louder and more energetic version of Brady Vernon. I mean,
I'll second that.
Yeah,
I can see it. So now, while we wait for Brady to phone the interview or the phone call over there, we got another question, and this one comes from Josh Gajewski. I always mess this guy's name up. I hate
He's got
it.
a great first name.
And he even I think
Wait,
DM'd me.
how do you spell his last name?
GAJEWSKI. He
Okay.
DM'd me a few weeks ago and showed me how to pronounce it, but
I was gonna say, didn't he tell you how to pronounce it?
I apologize, Josh. I apologize. Now he says he's played catch before on Michigan's field.
Oh.
With that said, now he says which college field have you played on, but
I've snuck onto the Ohio State field twice in my life.
I was going to say, so
I was like 7 years old.
Which
though.
college football fields have you guys been on in your life? So Brady, obviously Ohio State. What other fields have you been on?
Does this count like the ones that I've shot on and
Yeah,
done?
just any field you've been on.
All right, so then Oregon, I've been on IU, I've been on Purdue, I've been on Ohio State, I've been on San Diego State, I've been on UW, I've been on USC. We didn't go on UCLA's, ASU's too many times. Butler, if you want to consider that a football school. Oh, boy.
Well, that's a good amount.
I don't think I have that many, to be honest.
Why did we ask him first? We should have gone first because
Yeah.
ours are like 2 or 3.
Oh, I know. Like UW and ASU, USC. I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever went on Oregon. I don't think I've ever been inside of Autzen. I've just been to Oregon. Other than that, it's not a whole ton. I haven't been on a ton of college football fields.
Yeah, for me it's SC and ASU, and it would have been Stanford, but
sorry.
Oops.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot about Hawaii's. I forgot about Aloha Stadium.
You've been on
when I
the
was
field at Aloha Stadium?
Aloha State. I have. When I was like 10, I went to Hawaii. And, they just let us on. We walked into the stadium. It was open to get down on the field.
You know, aloha means hello and goodbye, Lyle. They were probably just telling you to leave.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? If that was the message, 10-year-old me didn't get it, and I started running around acting like I was a Pro Bowler. I wasn't.
Nice. Why didn't you want to be a Rainbow Warrior, dude?
Well, because Rainbow Warriors for, Cole McDonald's a stud and all, but that's that's not a Power 5 team. Not only is being a Pro Bowler better than a Power 5 team, that's the best of the best right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the Pro Bowl's relevant.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
Hey, the skills challenge they installed was awesome.
Or the dodgeball tournament.
I've been, oh boy, I've been on 3. I've been on Arizona State's.
Go Devils.
Pasadena City Colleges.
Nice.
Go
Fill us in on the last one,
Go
Blake.
Lancers. And the last one, for those that have been listening since season 1 of the show, well, I set foot on the football field of Duke University.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
And
How exactly?
let's just say, long story short, I was standing on the 50-yard line, and 1 hour later I was hiding in a bush in 25-degree weather in the snow, hiding from the cops. So let's just say that's...
How do I not know this?
You don't know this story?
No, it's
Oh,
a
boy.
fantastic story.
Is that still your wallpaper on your phone?
Nah. It lasted a few years. It is come and gone. But that is a story that's not for the airwaves because one, it's just too long. But two, I'm pretty certain some of the things that we were doing on that field are not legal. But hey,
Yeah, because you were being chased by the cops.
we were getting chased from the cops. But that's okay. It's a story to tell. And we have another caller. So Brady, if you can connect him, who do we have on right now?
We
with
have
us?
Kyle from Lubbock, Texas.
Kyle from Lubbock, Texas. Kyle, now I can probably guess this one as well. But by chance, who is your team?
I am a Red Raider fan.
I absolutely love it.
That is surprising.
Wow.
I absolutely love it. Now, whenever I hear about Texas Tech, I can't help but remember that beautiful, 68-56 score at Arizona State when Caleb Balaj ran for like 8 touchdowns. So I'm sure for you that was not that good of a game. But hey, you got us back the year later. So, my man, what do you have for us this week?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. What do you think the outcome of this weekend's game against Oklahoma will be? I mean, it's at 7 o'clock national television. It's going to be a blackout game here in Lubbock. And I was just wondering what y'all think is going to happen.
Now, I believe, I think it was you that was in our mentions earlier saying that Texas Tech got snubbed in the playoff rankings. And this is a Texas Tech team. They are 5-3, but they're kind of just one of those teams where they have some impressive wins. They beat Houston earlier in the year. That's a good one. They beat Oklahoma State. That's kind of, up for grabs. They only lost to West Virginia by 1 score. And they lost to Iowa State this week. So they've kind of been in and out. I think this is a Texas Tech team. I mentioned last week their quarterback Bowman was back. This is kind of like the guy where earlier in the season they looked like a legitimate team out of the Big 12 because of him. Then, as I mentioned, he had like that weird throat thing that like put him in the hospital for a while and he missed some time. But I definitely think, especially the fact that it is home, and you guys have kind of one of the more underrated atmospheres, especially in the Big 12. When I look at those games on TV, it looks insane. You mentioned the blackout. Usually when it's games like that, it's going to be a little more intense. The game's going to be on ABC, 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock your time, whatever it is. I think this is one of those games. I'm not sure what the spread is. I could see Texas Tech pulling this one out. I really do.
They absolutely could. And I mean, we've talked about this before, and we've talked about it on this episode. The Pac-12, I think, is one of the most competitive conferences in college football because, especially right now, it seems like anybody can truly beat anybody. But you look at the Big 12, and you look at the offenses that some of these teams have, there's no reason why Texas Tech can't beat Oklahoma based off of the way that their offense just produces points. So I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. Frankly, first team to 150 wins. So, I think it's going to be a good one. And I think this could – I mean, I don't want to put it up there with that Texas Tech-Texas game with Michael Crabtree, but I think this could end up being a similar game. Maybe not historically and significantly, but I think it can have a similar outcome.
I will tell you this. Oklahoma allows 232 passing yards a game. That's 74th in the country. Texas Tech, what is it, like 875 passing yards a game is what they put up?
Something like that.
So this will be a fun matchup to watch.
Now, I got to ask you, Kyle,
Yeah.
do you think you guys can get the job done?
I think so. I mean, I got family who all grew up diehard OU fans, and they're making the drive out to Lubbock for the game.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think hopefully we'll pull it out. It's going to be close for sure. And a couple of things that y'all touched on. I was looking at the spread, and I believe the over and under is 13.5. And the thing about Alan Bowman, he actually sustained a cracked rib in a halfway collapse lung against West Virginia.
Yeah.
So
Wait, so where are you from? Are you from Lubbock?
no, I'm here in school. I'm here at Lubbock for school right now. I'm from originally from Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if Texas Tech is able to get this win, you're going to be our go-to guy for insider on the Red Raiders.
I'm looking forward to it. But my next question was, if Texas Tech finishes just below 500 or right at, does Cliff Kingsbury get the boot?
I still don't think so. I mean, it's really tough to say. It just depends on what expectations are for Texas Tech. If you think that they should be competing for the Big 12 every year, and they shouldn't be in this situation, then yeah. But what he's been able to do, I mean, he hasn't done a horrible job. He hasn't really taken them to that next level I think they were hoping for. But from what I've seen, and because I've made tapes for guys from Texas Tech, and the one thing I asked him, I said, "What's it like playing for him?" Because he's so young. I think he's still in his young 30s or something like that, and they all love him. So the general consensus from Texas Tech players is that they love him. So I think it's kind of more like an upper management type deal. But I'm sure you could probably answer this better than anyone. So if they finish, like you said, around 500, what do you think they should do with him?
I think they should wait and give it another year, just depending on, what happens with these other coaches at the end of the season if they end up getting the boot from their respective schools. But, I think the general consensus around here is just give them another year, see what happens at the end of the season, decide whether or not to give them another year, and really just honestly, I guess, see what happens. I don't really know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I like Kingsbury, and from what I've heard, all the recruits' moms like him as well, so that's probably helping him bring in recruits. But Kyle,
he's older than Lincoln Riley.
Really?
Yeah, he's 4 years older.
Wow, that's shocking. But Kyle, thank you so much for staying up and listening, and have a good time this week. That's going to be an amazing game, so definitely enjoy that.
Of course, guys. Thank you for your time.
All right, have a good one.
Real quick, Josh, you just said Lincoln Riley. Not going to get into this, but any chance Lincoln Riley jumps to be the next head coach of the Browns to reunite with Baker?
I don't think so.
He said he's not interested right now. I don't think it happens, at least for another few years.
Yeah.
This will be interesting. So the phone lines are officially closed. So if you weren't able to call in, we appreciate all the callers. We'll definitely try to get you guys on in the next few weeks. But we have a few minutes left for the Q&A. So guys, I got 3 great questions right here that we definitely got to get to. Blake Walker wants to know, if College Game Day came to Arizona State, what would your sign be?
I have no idea. It would have to depend on who exactly they were playing. I don't know. It'd be tough to say. It'd be something about the other team that they're playing. I know you would hope that they're playing SC.
Well, it's all right. I got that sign in last year. But if I had to put one on there right now, I would say Taron Adams put me on my back when I was a kid, who's one of ASU's corners who, funny story, when we were 10 playing Pop Warner football, he was on an opposing team, and he just laid me out. And then, funny enough, he comes to Arizona State.
You could go with the classic, the sign we have in the student section all the time now, Firm for Herm. That's a great one. But it all depends. Maybe an HH show sign, perhaps?
Can't go wrong there. I think it just depends on who we're playing, because I want to do something that just goes, just full savage, that just completely just ends that other team. But hey, if we can somehow get game day here in the next year, that would be ideal. So if you're listening out there, game day people, who cares if we have a bad record? Please come to Arizona State.
Come see your boy Herm.
Kirk Herbstreit, I guarantee you'll have a fun time if you come here on a Friday night. Julio Cesar Ayala says, why did you guys choose ASU instead of going to other colleges?
Well, I applied to a couple other schools, all with opportunities to do on-air sports broadcasting, and I started broadcasting in high school, and I wanted to do play-by-play, and that's what I'm focusing on now, as we heard earlier from the clip. And Lyle and I called the SC-ASU game this past weekend. So for me, it was getting on-air opportunities, and I knew that there are a couple other clubs here that actually broadcast games for the Pac-12 network, so I've gotten involved in that as well. And I was talking with the ASU hockey coach today, and ASU's hockey team went from the club level after winning the national championship to going to the NCAA D1 level. And I told him, your D1 program is half the reason I decided to come to this school, because I wanted to broadcast college hockey. So it was really just for broadcasting.
Yeah, my reason's more along the same lines as Josh. It's funny. Josh was more on top of what schools had really good sports journalism programs in high school, where I was more trying to kind of feel around. I had a feeling that's what I wanted to do, being sports journalism, but I wasn't exactly sure what schools had the great programs. 'Cause I looked at Washington State, I looked at U of A, I applied to Oregon, but Arizona State, when I toured it here, we found out about this just fantastic sports journalism program they have, and this, you look up at our top floor studio, and it looks like a real like Channel 5 news production studio, and they have all these great programs and opportunities. And after I came here, it kind of just confirmed this is what I wanted to do. And then, to be honest, meeting these guys and getting on the show, I started to realize I like being on air and like getting my voice heard, even though I thought I wanted to come in and be a writer. And then even more so than the voice part, I once I started calling a few games more with Josh, I realized how much I enjoyed doing the play-by-play. And that's really similar to Josh, what I'm trying to roll with right now in Arizona State. They have all these great opportunities to do that between here at our student radio station and some of the Pac-12 streams that we get access to. I mean, it's really just kind of been a dream come true for me.
In addition to all those things they said, being on air immediately and doing all the broadcasting, and for me, photography wasn't even something that I really considered doing until I got here. And it was really cool because first football game my freshman year, I was on the sideline shooting it, and I haven't looked back. And so it really just was a click immediately. I mean, I have family that lives out here, so I've been coming here for years and years since I was 5 or 6 years old. So I kind of grew up here. I was here once or twice a year visiting and all that, but it was fun. So it was a really cool opportunity to see them grow the Cronkite School and grow the journalism program and the respect that it had. And so it was really an obvious, pretty easy choice for me.
I'll keep it short and simple. The chicks. No, I'm kidding. I just applied to a bunch of Pac-12 schools, got into ASU because who doesn't, and toured here and loved it. So there you go. If you want to do sports journalism, definitely come to Arizona State. If you want to have a good time, come to Arizona State. All right, but, boys, that does wrap up the Q&A, though, because we got about 12 minutes to go through our pick'ems. I believe we had 14 games this week because it's a huge slate of games, so a lot of good ones to get through. So let's do those very quickly. In first place for our pick'ems league on the ESPN group is Meep 1 with 63 points. It's a different champion every week, so that's exciting. So Meep 1. Now, gentlemen, our rankings had a major shakeup this week. In last place with 57 is Brady.
Darn. Oh, dude.
In third place with 58 points is Josh.
Oh, what?
I came in with 59 is yours truly, and Lyle still in first, but only with a 2-point lead with 61 points.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
wow.
So now, boys, it's close now.
I think this might be the closest it's ever been.
It is a close
what did I have?
one. You have 57.
It's still in it. It's 57, 58, 59, 61.
It is going to be
close.
All right, gentlemen, 10 minutes to do 14 games. Let's get it underway. Ohio at Western Michigan.
Close game, interesting one, but the Bronx versus the Bobs. You got to go with the team that sounds more intimidating when you shorten their nickname. So I'm going with the Bronx.
I'm going Western Michigan at home.
Look at the board. It says Ohio.
I can't see it from here. Oh, it definitely does say Ohio.
Every pick, baby.
I'm going to go with the Bobcats as well. Pittsburgh at Virginia.
People are starting to give Virginia credit, and I said early this season that they could be a difference maker in the ACC conference, and people are going to start turning toward Charlottesville. I'm taking the Cavaliers over Pittsburgh this week.
I like Pitt on the road. They've hung with some good teams this year, obviously most notably Notre Dame. And Virginia, look, they were one of these fringe top 25 teams in the committee's rankings this week. And I think Pitt hangs with them, and I think they pull away at the end.
Virginia. Hi, Kyle guy.
Oh, gosh. You can make the case that Bryce Perkins has been the best ASU quarterback transfer this year. I mean, he's been fantastic for Virginia.
None of them have been bad.
I like the Cavs in this one. Texas A&M at Auburn.
Go Ags.
I got Texas A&M.
You said it too quick, Auburn.
I got Auburn. Michigan State at Maryland. We didn't even touch about with the interesting situation going on in Maryland right now, but
yeah,
it's Michigan State at Maryland. Not a good year for both these schools.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really close game. I think Michigan State wins by 10, but I think it's going to be a late touchdown that puts an exclamation point on the victory.
I like Michigan State. Like I said, Maryland, they've got way too much off the field stuff going around right now. And I mean, a couple of these players, just walked out today. And Michigan State, they're still a good football team. They've had a couple of disappointing losses this year, but I like the Spartans on the road.
Sparty.
I'm going to go with Michigan State in this one. Stanford at Washington.
I'm going to take Washington over Stanford in the most boring Pac-12 football game of the season. Two teams that were ranked so high at the beginning of the year. Two teams that are so irrelevant. UW.
Gonna go with the Huskies as well in the greatest setting in college football.
They're playing in Eugene?
No, well, Eugene is not the greatest setting in college football. BK.
Oh,
It's
whatever
a
you
pretty
say.
nice view.
It's pretty great. I'm going Washington in the rain. See the raindrops?
Oh, boy. I'm going to go with Stanford in this one. Boston College at Virginia Tech.
You know, I really want to take the Eags. You know they actually call them that there?
No.
BC students call them the Eags.
I like it.
It's the greatest thing I've ever heard. It's a terrible nickname. Taking Virginia Tech in the upset.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Oh, wait, this is Boston College. I'm still going Boston College.
Virginia Tech.
I like Virginia Tech. Iowa at Purdue.
It's tough, but I think the Purdue magic is going to run out after that Ohio State win. I'm taking Iowa.
I like Iowa on the road. Their defense has been so good. Nate Stanley, their quarterback, he's not flashy, but he gets the job done.
Iowa. Something cool they're doing this weekend. So, you know the tradition of waving to the Children's Hospital in Iowa? Mm-hmm. Well, this game's at Purdue, and to honor Tyler Trent, it's the end of the third quarter is when it is? The end of the first quarter. I think everybody's waving in the stadium to the west to wave to the Children's Hospital in Iowa from Purdue, which is going to be pretty cool.
That's cool.
Sweet.
Well done, Purdue.
Iowa.
Just for that reason, I'm going to pick Purdue in this one. Notre Dame at Northwestern.
Well, my boy Peter Warren from the Chatham Anglers and from Northwestern called in earlier. So you know what? For you, Pete, I've got Northwestern. To keep it close, I'm taking the Irish.
Oh.
As Lee Corso would say, nice pick. Nice pick. Look, this is going to be a close game, and I touched on it earlier. I think Northwestern can keep it within 7 to 10. Having said that, I think talent-wise, this is obviously a Notre Dame team that's one of the best it's been in a long time, so I got the Irish.
Number 3, Notre Dame winning this game.
Peter, this is for you. Since none of these guys are giving your team faith, none of these guys are giving your team a chance, I'm taking the Wildcats.
I'm going to get such a nasty text message at the end of this
I'm taking
show.
Northwestern with the upset. Not so fast, my friend. I need like the pen that Corso always has with the pen. Nice pick.
It's a pencil.
Nice pick. What do we got here? We got Georgia at Kentucky.
Are we just skipping games now, or did I miss something in my notes? Anyway,
I must have like reordered them to put the better games last.
Oh, no,
that's my fault,
dude. You know what? It's fine.
Sorry,
it's fine. I'm not gonna go with all my puns this week, but this is one that I would use a pun for. I'm taking Georgia.
I don't think this one's that close. I got the Bulldogs.
Georgia. Woof, woof.
I want to see Kentucky win this game just to mess up all the rankings in the playoffs and the SEC, but I think Georgia gets the job done. West Virginia at Texas.
You know, at the start of the show, I had Texas winning this game, and I have since changed it. I have West Virginia winning on the road over Texas, but I think West Virginia is going to get there, but ultimately I think it's the first team to 35 wins this game.
I think this game's going to be high scoring for sure. Big 12 showdown. But I like West Virginia in this game. Like we said, they more or less control their own destiny, maybe with a little bit of outside help. But Texas, like I said, they're not back, and they're starting to fall off. And I think West Virginia is now back on the come up.
Will Virginia. West Virginia. I wrote Will Virginia because it's cool.
Oh boy,
West Virginia.
I like the Mountaineers in this one. I can't even speak.
English, Blake.
Penn State at Michigan.
This is a statement game for both teams because if Penn State wins this game somehow, not only does it screw up the entire playoff picture, because the Big Ten's best team right now appears to be Michigan with Ohio State outside, but if Penn State wins this game, it proves that they're going to get back into it because Penn State, out of the top Big Ten team, out of the top Power 5 schools in the country, Penn State is by far the most irrelevant. So I think if they win this game, it means a lot for them. However, I think this is the statement win that Michigan needs to really push them further into the playoff picture. I've got the Wolverines at home.
I think Michigan just continues to show why they're a top 5 team. Shea Patterson's playing well. Karan Higdon, their running back, is showing out. Their defense has been really good. And even against a team like Penn State, and they're going to come in hungry, I still like the Wolverines.
My terrible attempt at a block M. Go Michigan.
I like Michigan.
That was terrible.
The game of the week and the game of the year, most likely, and that is Alabama at LSU.
I've got the Crimson Tide in a one-score football game, and I think that LSU is going to have the lead at the end of the first quarter. But I do think that Bama pulls it out in the end. Again, one-score game, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. I think on ESPN in my pick'ems, I think I put 28-23 as my final score. I think Bama wins in a close one.
Alabama, and I'm going to say by 10. I think this game goes back and forth most of the game, but in the end, Crimson Tide by 10 points.
Alabama logo. Go Alabama.
I'm excited for this one because a lot of questions will be answered in regards to Alabama, LSU, Tua Tagovailoa, and this whole Devin White situation. Looks like he does have to miss the first half. I'm going to go with Alabama in this one, and I'm excited for this one. Which brings us to the worst of the worst with winless UTEP against one-win Rice.
Well, guys, I had mentioned earlier that the Chatham Anglers, the team that Peter Warren from Northwestern and I worked for, I'm wearing the pullover right now. And well, guys, I'm wearing a Chatham Anglers sweatshirt. I was their broadcaster over the summer, and Rice University, which is in Houston, is actually 551.5 miles closer to Chatham, Massachusetts than UTEP is in El Paso. So for that reason, I'm taking the Owls over the Miners this week. Also, I made chicken and rice last night. I'm taking Rice.
My 2 reasons, idle, similar to Josh's. One, the team I called games for in the Cape Cod League, they had a kid from Rice this year named Braden Como. Kind of like Go Tigers, but Como is E-A-U-X is what I tell people. I don't know. I tried to help people out with the pronunciation. He went to Rice. Along with that, Blake and I went over to Chipotle today to help fund Blaze Radio. You buy something from Chipotle, 33% of the funds go to this station. And I got some rice in my steak burrito today. So for that reason, I'm taking Rice.
I'm going Rice because I had Chinese food for dinner last night.
I like Rice, and I think UTEP goes the season winless, which does bring us to Utah at Arizona State.
I think it's a close game. I think ASU is going to ride the momentum from last week's win at USC. But look, SC's not a good team, and there's been a lot of buzz around here lately. And I don't want to be the bringer of bad news, but just a win over a subpar USC team does not mean the Devils are making the Rose Bowl. They can. It's not going to happen. I think it's a close game. I think ASU competes, but I think the Utes score a very late touchdown to put it out of reach, similar to what ASU did to USC this past Saturday.
I think this Utah team is easily the best team that Arizona State is going to play this year, and especially up to this point, have played this year. I like the Utes, and I like them, I'm going to say, by 12. I think they're just the far superior team. I think the Devils can keep it close for a half, but I think Utah pulls away.
Is it possible the 2 Utes?
2 what? What was that word?
What word?
2 what?
What?
Did you say Utes?
What's a Ute? I think
What's that from?
My Cousin Vinny. Steve Pesci movie. Good movie. Also, I have this to play real quick because we're talking about
Pesci, by the
Joe
way.
Pesci. What did I say?
Steve Pesci.
I was thinking of never mind. Here's this.
N'Keal Harry, Wilkins in the shotgun, Benjamin to his left. Claps twice, now 3 times, and gets the snap. Looking to the left, throws deep down the left sideline to N'Keal Harry. Goes up for it, and oh my goodness, did he catch that football? Yes, he did. N'Keal Harry, are you serious? One-handed grab, falling to his behind, and manages to stay in bounds and pick up a first down.
N'Keal Harry fell to his behind, and ASU will fall behind. I'm going to go Utah in this game.
Another great call by our very man Lyle right there.
Our very man Lyle?
Yeah, I don't know. I was
what
going to say.
What does that mean?
I was going to say by and it's a long show. I'm going to go with Arizona State in this one. I think they're going to ride the momentum, as you said. But that does wrap up this week's show. Thank you so much to everyone listening live on BlazeRadioOnline.com. Thank you to everyone that followed along on Twitter at the HHShow_. Make sure to give us a follow if you haven't already. That way you can interact with us, send us some tweets, talk to us during the show. We had a very good time. Thanks to everyone that called. And, yeah, lots of good football this week. We will see you guys next week because this has been Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klein from the Bill Austin Radio Studio in beautiful downtown Phoenix. We'll catch you guys next week.